Welcome back to Bold as a Fact. My name is Brett English.
I'm Ryan Ratego.
And we've got another special guest tonight, another bold man, John Littler, qualified psychologist, preacher, and counsellor. A man of all talents, to be honest with you. He's, how would you describe the man?
Very intelligent man, very well articulated. He knows what he's talking about, and the way that he speaks about God is kind of like a way that kind of pulls you, like it's attractive, like it's like one of those things where like you see someone speak about God and faith and love and with so much passion.
You feel it.
That you feel it, you know?
Believe it,
yeah, you feel it and you believe it, and it kind of gives you a little bit of hope and it gives you a little bit more faith.
That's one thing he did bring in. He talks about that is like, he brings hope.
He brings hope.
He asks people if they've lost hope and then helps them build that back up again.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you guys. Enjoy the show.
Around, yeah. We'll definitely edit that out.
Qualified psychologist. But I can't call myself a psychologist because of the COVID, all of that stuff.
Okay.
I've actually resigned from APRA.
Oh wow.
Because they put the screws on us back in February that we have to toe the government narrative. Now, for me, I'm trained to question, to ask questions. So when someone says you can't do that, I'll go, oh, how come?
Yeah, that's fair enough.
What? Who said? What for? Like, so, yeah, and it was just like, if you don't toe the position statement that we have on COVID that goes with the government narrative, then you can be deregistered, you can be fined, you can get into trouble. So,
okay, fair enough.
So every medical and allied health professional, chiropractor, physio, whatever, medical practitioner mainly, they cannot give you their honest view or opinion, or they have to toe the line. So when they say in relation to go and talk to your doctor to get his opinion or her opinion, you're only going to get the position that the government's got on it. So they're going to tell you, yeah, look, there's rare things, but everything's fine, everything's good. Whereas then, I didn't really want to get into this, but then you get all the other information from, it's from outer space and we're going to have an alien attack next year, to there's some pretty hard evidence out there that maybe there's some risk in taking the vaccination.
Well, absolutely. I mean, my
and we've got into it already, haven't we?
We've got into it already, yeah. Welcome back to Bold as a Fact, guys. I've got a special guest, a good friend of mine, John Littler, qualified psychologist, teacher, coach. He was my mental health teacher for a period of time.
Yes.
And he's come to join us. Also, a man of God, who I would call a preacher, in my opinion. You bring the word of God to life. Yes. You did that even out of a religious setting, which was good, and I appreciated that at the time.
No, that's great. Appreciate that.
And you just started a new business.
Part of my business is a company called Triumph Over Trauma. So coming through my own lived experience of childhood trauma and the training and everything that I've done over the years, Triumph Over Trauma is what and that comes out of the Richard's trauma process, which is a really unique process that within 3 sessions, people with, PSTD and anxiety, depression, it's getting amazing results.
Is it sort of like a one-on-one therapeutic coaching setting, or how?
Yeah, it consists of 3 2-hour sessions.
Okay.
It's using a lot of neural psychology, so and it really does get into the amygdala, where the
is that the reptilian brain?
Reptilian brain. So it's the latest, science in all of that, and using. So one of the things that I really love is that we have this faculty called imagination. Everyone uses it every day. Yeah. Yet, to me, it's a gift that God has given us. Yeah. Because without the imagination, we don't have faith or hope. We can't imagine Christ on the cross. We can see pictures of it. We can't imagine the life that he had. So we use our imagination every day, all of us. Yeah. Now, most people use their imagination for fearing the worst. That's like one way. That's one way you can use your imagination, or one way we can do it for creating and imagining, the best and creating that way. But using the faculty of the imagination, it's called dynamic reimagining. Yeah. And so there's 3 processes that you go through. It's pretty intricate to describe. So I do a 1-hour presentation where I run people through and explain exactly what it is and how it works. And at the end of that, do a test on how vividly they can imagine. So imagining isn't observing yourself or observing at a distance. It's actually, you're actually in it and you're experiencing it. So for example, we run people through, imagine cutting a lemon.
Yep.
You relax and you know the juice is running and you can smell, and then you take it up and you take a bite of it. And if you're relaxed and you're really imagining it, you start to salivate and you can see people pulling back from wanting to eat it.
Wow.
Through
So the thoughts are that powerful, it becomes
the
almost
imagination
biochemical.
is that powerful.
Imagination,
Yeah.
Wow.
And in reality, like, people do imagine things, and physiologically they experience things from what they imagine. And so one of the things that I often ask people is, how often have you imagined something, being convinced within yourself that you're right and it's going to happen, and then to find out that it didn't? And you've got yourself all worked up. You've even had the argument all there. What you're going to say, what they're going to say. And you find yourself all tense, and you walk in and it isn't anything like you imagined.
You're just stuck in a loop of your own thoughts.
Yeah, stuck in a loop of your own thoughts. And so that's where self-awareness comes in, and being aware of what you are creating in your own mind, and what's triggering that if you don't do it consciously.
Yeah. Nice. So, were you a practicing psychologist at one point, like taking in clients one-on-one, that sort of thing?
So my background really started late 80s.
Yeah.
I knew I had a brain, loved people, loved working with people, and I wanted a piece of paper to prove that I was capable of doing more than driving forklifts and trucks and buses and stuff like that. So I went back to university and did my 4 years, did my honours degree. Loved doing research. Went and started work initially with the Alcohol and Drug Authority, and back then they just opened up the Moore Street Clinic. I think it's called Step 1 now. So I was part of that whole. Bob Hawke's daughter was a heroin addict. He gave $1 million for getting rehab set up so that other people could help. So I was part of that. Managed Hollyoak client services for a while, but after about 5 or 6 years working in the alcohol and drug area, it was kind of like I'd cut my teeth and I wanted to move on.
Yeah, well, you carry a lot, don't you? I mean, energetically.
Yeah, you do, and it's an area that's really demanding, and sometimes you don't see the reward for the effort that you put in. Hopefully, if clients are able to get well, you don't want to see them again, but and that's the
But you see them again
the
more
whole
often
idea.
than not, right?
Yeah, there was a bit of a a loop around it.
What was the most what is the most dangerous drug that you've seen that had the most nastiest consequences on people?
I think when things moved from heroin, methadone program, and then the HIV/AIDS came, what I saw was the transition into amphetamines and speed, and just seeing that amphetamine psychosis and people really flipping out. And the struggle between, is this a mental illness? So I'm going back in the 90s, late 80s, 90s. There was a kind of a debate and a struggle between, well, no, they belong in the mental health side, not in the alcohol and drug side. So there's a definite wall there.
Yeah.
And now over the years it's been brilliant the way there's dual diagnosis, and so we realise you're either using drugs to help you manage your mental health problem, or you're using drugs and you've developed a mental health problem. So there's that blur and that crossover.
In your experience, what is it that really drives people to addiction and to get involved in these substances?
Tough question. What would drive them? Look, I think the only thing I can do is probably come back to my own life and use my own life as an example. Coming from a fairly abusive background, coming from parents who were both alcoholics, so the love and the nurturing, although they say they love, but the way that was dished out wasn't good. So adult children of alcoholics is a great area to study into, and just see that then what you're trying to do is numb the pain that you've grown up with, and of course you get influenced by people that you're around. So I think there's a few things that influence that. Some people can go through the same situation and not get involved in drugs at all, find the Lord or find some other means to be able to help them cope and get through life.
Yeah.
I think once you get accepted into a group and you become a subculture, and that becomes your way of life, and
subculture.
Then you get the compound of guilt and shame and blame and regret. So it then becomes a compound thing.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Not one thing would drive people to it. People have had a fairly good upbringing. They just start, I don't know, experimenting
happens,
get the physical addiction. Yeah.
Well, the biggest thing I want to talk to about, if someone is struggling with addiction, or they know someone is struggling with addiction, what are something they can do to help them?
Look, there's a couple of things, I'll answer that two ways. There is a program at the moment, Mental Health First Aid.
Yeah.
It's a 2-day course. I would recommend that to everybody and anybody.
Mental Health First Aid?
Mental Health First Aid. And in there is an acronym, ALGE, ALGEE. So the first thing for anybody who is not qualified or experienced, the first one is to just assess the person, build that relationship, access to them, try and understand them, no judgment. So the first thing is not to judge, but then listen to them, give them, and then encourage them to get professional help.
Yeah.
And encourage them to get some support around them. So if your family is not supporting you, and the people that you're hanging around with are actually pulling you into it, well, you've got to get away from that and set up a structure. Who is it that you would go to if you were in trouble and you needed help? That's usually the person you would then have as a buddy or someone there to support you.
Yeah.
But then getting professional help as well.
Yeah.
First thing would be just admitting to yourself that you've got a problem.
That's normally the hardest part, isn't it?
You can't help anyone who doesn't want to help themselves. And it's sad, because I see and have seen a lot of parents, basically give their life away and all their belongings to their children or child who has a severe addiction, and lose everything because they're enabling them to maintain. Now, they love them and they just want to help them, but the thing is they become the problem.
Become an enabler.
Yeah, if that makes sense.
That does make sense.
Yeah, so tough love does work. One of the programs I think that I'd really recommend to any male at the moment, I do believe that there is a female program starting up now, is out at Shalom House.
Shalom House.
Shalom House, yeah. And Peter, the guy out there who runs Shalom House, is doing an amazing job with the guys. And it's a pretty tough program, but it's what I say, guys, it's what we need. We need some tough love, and we need some tough boundaries, and know that people who are there care for you and love you, and it's got a spiritual component to it too. So it's got
that's well needed, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, are you comfortable talking about the whole thing with the towing the government line and the whole thing in regards to coronavirus and that sort of stuff, or is that something?
Man, look, again, it's over this last year, I've had good friends abuse me. It's been a horrible experience. Actually.
Good friends abusing you,
being bullied into, because I'm sitting on the fence. So I know whoever may be listening or watching now, it's, may have an opinion already. It's just, and I guess what it is what I started to say back when you and I were just talking before this started. When I received an email from APRA to say that all allied and health professionals need to toe the line and support the government narrative, or there would be consequences, just something in me just goes, well, hang on.
That's not right.
That, whether it's right or not, I just question it. So I'm just, again, me personally, I'm someone who questions everything. And I suppose the training as a psychologist, as a counsellor, as a teacher trainer, I'm an inquisitive person. I want to know who said, why did they say that, what did they say that for? So the how, why, when, where, what, who, which I think when you were at college I used to teach everyone, always ask the how, why, when, where, what, who. So yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
It's almost like if you go to a professional or a doctor or anybody, you want to get a professional opinion. And if
it's
they're
not biased because they have to.
That's true. But if they're not allowed to have an opinion besides the government opinion, then you're not really seeing a professional. You're speaking to a robot or a book, or you know. To me, that's kind of scary, where doctors can't give you their opinion anymore, and they're not allowed to have an opinion anymore. It's
that's right, and it's a
very,
very touchy area because there is consequences. So if I'm perceived to be negative towards the government approach and the current narrative regarding the rollout of vaccination, then, you know, again, I am registered still, so
that's fair enough. Yeah. Well, I'm not an anti-vaxxer.
I kind of, there's a line there that I can't cross, which says a lot.
Yeah, that is fair enough. Yeah. Well, I'm not an anti-vaxxer by any stretch of the imagination. I've had all my vaccines, except that I've never heard of one virus needing 3 vaccines. You know, I'm like,
and boosters,
so you're two shots and a booster. It's like 3 vaccines for 1 virus, and it's just there's so much misinformation out there. It's just like I'm on the fence as well.
Yeah.
Just because the only asset I've ever had through my whole life has been my health.
Yes.
I don't want to risk it.
No.
For a virus that doesn't seem to be that deadly. You know.
It is deadly. People have died from it.
Yeah.
I've got a friend in the UK, runs a company there. So last year, his 10 people work in his company.
Yeah. And
the 10 people did get coronavirus.
Got coronavirus.
And 2 of them died.
Okay.
So now the 2 that died, and this is, again, I'm not going to say his name, but he said, well, they were heavy smokers, and one of them had asthma.
Okay, so that's a deadly combination.
It's not that they died from COVID, and I think this is where, and this is me, I would love to know, okay, I want the data, give me the raw data, and let's have a look at what were the comorbidity of the groups of people or of the age groups of people, and just really analyse the data. And it's one of the things that I've, you know, may get into trouble even saying this, but one of the things that I'm disappointed with is, as a professional, you know, you do 4 years of research methods when you're studying psych. So research methods is the core. Yet it seems that the peak bodies and the professionals, they're not asking any questions. They're just
taking orders.
And to me, I'm going to raise another, you know, again, controversial one, but it's like climate change. It's kind of like, hang on, wait a minute. Who said that the science is settled? Because Joanne Nova, a really great friend of mine who's got a blog that people can go and look, they're all geologists and scientists in their own right, and they know how to read the data, and they come up with an opposing view. So for me, there's always how things move forward is that I think having debate and having the different views coming together and then analysing and looking at, you know, raw data, questioning the source of the data, who's getting paid for even collecting the data.
That's true.
And then you can come up with but there's no debate.
Well, I think that I heard a really good saying by someone. It's like, if you can't win the debate, don't have the debate.
Yes.
You know, that's what it looks like. But it'd be good to have an open discussion about it and actually be open to having the debate and going through the different sciences and different research methods. Because I saw a show with Greg Braden, and they were going to Antarctica and drilling through the ice.
Yes.
And they were measuring the Earth's temperature somehow, I don't know how, over the last 100,000 years, and they're saying that there are cycles of heating and cooling.
And
the heating isn't the actual, the worst part. It's the cooling that comes afterwards.
That's
so
right.
Maybe raising, but it's going to cooling, and that's just a natural flow, ebb and flow of life.
But the other theory is that carbon in the air comes after the heat. So it's not before. So one doesn't cause the heating. It follows behind, because at the moment we've got lots of solar flares, and if people have a look, we've got an amazing aurora
borealis.
You know the word. Like in the southern hemisphere, northern, it's just amazing the curtains of light that are going because there is an increase in solar flares. And the other thing that I've always, again, it's just questioning, because who am I? I'm not a weather expert or a climate expert at all. Yet I question in the modelling, and this is where again I get very concerned. Computer modelling is always based on assumptions. So they've got to have a set of assumptions that they put in place to assume certain things and certain outcomes. And when they don't include cloud in the modelling, well, that's a big element that actually does protect.
Yeah.
And helps cool.
Absolutely,
so, yeah. Anyway, that's just another.
I heard they weren't even including the sun.
Yeah.
But then again, how do you know it's true?
So people like you and I, we're sitting here, and it's really great talking now. But we only can go on whatever information is
received,
given to us from whatever source. And so I always want to go back to who said, who paid them, and
go back to the root.
Yeah. If you can. Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to chat to you about was God, religion, especially Christianity. You were telling us a story, going way back now, that you had a vision. Is that right? Or you had a vision, or something happened to you in church, where something happened.
Back
mystical.
In my, when I was around 18, 19 years of age, I was working at Peter's Ice Cream over in Victoria, actually, night shift, packing ice creams in crates. And there was a pastor who was working there. His church was on Sundays, but he had to earn some extra cash during the week.
Yeah.
And it was just through getting to know, he's passed away now, Bill Salisbury, Pastor Salisbury. We were walking down to the car park one night, and on the way down he was asking me the questions, do you know Jesus? And I was like, oh, not another Jesus freak, So I was a little bit
on the back foot,
critical. Yeah. And we were standing underneath the light in the car park, and the conversation went, like, well, would you like to know who he is, because you can have your personal relationship with him? And I think part of me was, I just wanted to get home. So, I said, yeah, sure. So he said, well, let's pray together. And I know the prayer now, so I can say it. They just say these words after me, Father, I believe that Jesus is the Son of God, and, I confess with my mouth and believe in my heart that he, forgive me for my sins, and that kind of thing. And as we were praying, and I closed my eyes again, because it's just, the light got brighter.
Inside your head? Or
no, the street light. And I was like, whoa. And I just felt goosebumps all over. And it was a moment where again, it's an experience. So I can say the experience, and people go, oh yeah, but what have you been smoking? But it was a real experience. And then it was the following Sunday, I went to the church in Malvern, and I must admit, I went and I sat at the back, because I thought, well, as soon as the service is over, I was being polite more than anything else. As soon as the service is over, I'm out of here. And I'd heard about the happy clappy. So as a kid, we went to the Church of England, and we went to Sunday school. And I think Mum and Dad sent us to Sunday school just so they could have the morning home. They never went.
That's fair enough.
Okay. And so all I was used to was the guy in the robes, the purple bag being passed along the pews, and you sung 3 hymns, and you could never understand what the guy was talking about, because he spoke in thee, thou, those, and thuses.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, when I got to this Malvern Town Hall this particular day, there was a band playing, there was music, everyone's hallelujah and praising the Lord. And I was like, wow, what have I walked into, And then they came out on stage and said, look, our lead singer can't sing today because she's got an abscess. And this girl was on stage, and you could see the side of her face was swollen.
Oh, wow.
But we're going to lay hands on her and pray. And I've kind of like, I've heard of this. I've heard of this kind of healing.
Yeah.
Anyway, they prayed for her, and she just laid down on the ground, and they kept singing. And I don't know, time went by, a couple of songs. Then she got up, and her face was not swollen, and she got the microphone, started singing and praising the Lord, and everyone just was, hallelujah, praise the Lord. That's insane.
What do you think that kind of energy is that facilitates in that healing?
Well, it's straight out of the Bible.
Straight from God.
Some people, what we get into now is denominations and doctrine. So some people say that the gifts of healing was back then and not for now, but the Holy Spirit is in each one of us, whether we believe or not.
I believe that God's unchanging and eternal.
Unchanging in his way, and that, as the Holy Spirit moves, as your faith moves with it, then anything is possible.
Because I've seen these kind of healings in different churches before, and
Yes.
I definitely I'm a believer.
Yes.
But I'm just wondering, I've always seen it happen in a group setting. Does it change when there's people there witnessing and believing? Does God's power amplify through the people in the room, rather than being at home and just, I wish I could heal myself? But it heals greater in a collective. I've noticed that.
Yeah, so it can be, and also, so we run a connect group at home. We go to Kingdom City Church.
Yeah.
No, I've seen healing just one-on-one. In fact, I've prayed for people and they've been healed. Now, it's not me. It's definitely not me.
Yeah.
But I just, Lord, Father, you are the Lord of Lords. You're the King of Kings. Father, this person is asking for, they need to be healed. And the next thing they're walking. So it's their faith, power of the Lord.
Just comes through
That's
you.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, so it's just been an incredible experience, and I know that for myself, again, and everybody's journey and everyone's story is their own, but if it wasn't for Christ in my life, I know I wouldn't be here. So it's what got me through, being diagnosed with Hep C and given 10 years to live back in 1991.
Oh, really?
I just prayed, and I know that 22 years later, again through medical science. So when it comes to vaccines and medical, I've been on drug trials before.
Yeah.
So I was one of the first group to use interferon. Now, it nearly killed me, but I could stop it. So I bled internally, my platelets.
Was it injections or oral tablets?
Injection.
Okay.
But you knew I had to sign a 4-page document that gave me all the potential side effects before I went on it. So I was one of the groups that went through the trials of interferon.
Okay, fair enough.
And then years later, there's interferon, ribavirin, bezaprevir, a whole combination of drugs that we used. And so in 2012, I went on another clinical trial. Again, knowing fully what the potential side effects and dangers were, and instead of doing the program for 12 months, I was taken off after 6 months because I was completely liver healed. And here I am now, as I say, 30 odd years later, loving my life. And so I'm not anti anything. Science is great. Yet there's something about this whole virus vaccine thing that just doesn't add up to me. So I'm very, very cautious.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I'm just going by obviously what I've seen. I know that social media is a hell of a thing with algorithms and feeding information you're going to consume. But a lot of my friends have taken the vaccine. Some of them have been absolutely fine, no problems. But every now and then I've heard of one of my friends was rushed to hospital, migraines, couldn't stand up. But she's okay now, thankfully. My friend's mother, very healthy, 60s, she had Bell's palsy in the side of her face. Just lost the feeling there, which would be really scary. Another friend of mine who worked at the Department of Health, he was having like really burning on his skin for 3 days. Like his skin was burning and that sort of stuff. And I'm just like, well, okay. And then I've heard obviously on the news that there's kids getting myocardosis and soccer players are literally passing out and having to leave their profession because they can't do it because they're heart issues. And that sort of freaks me out a little bit. Healthy.
So there are
people.
definite side effects.
Like
you can go onto the CDC, you can go onto the yellow card database with the UK government, you can go on our own TGA, and there are recorded side effects. Where what we don't know and where we probably then speculate is how much is being reported, is it underreported? And one of the things that crossed my mind some months ago was when they were reporting how many cases every day, there were, and we know the PCR, so I know the PCR test from back in the HIV days. It was not a very accurate test.
I've heard,
So we know that, and you can go and read up on that and look at all the research and you'll find that it wasn't a very accurate test. So that's why they did liver biopsies afterwards and they did other tests. So the PCR test gives a lot of false positives. So when you have a look at the number of cases being reported, and again, and I'm just going by what you see on the news and read, on Facebook or on social media, because that's the only access we have. But when any message is being delivered inside a parcel of fear, I have an acronym. One, the F is face it and find out. E is then evaluate it. Where did it come from? Who said? And just do your own evaluation of where it came from.
Yep.
And then A comes from the work health and safety. Do a proper assessment. Do a risk analysis. So what's the risk here? R is then whatever the result is, make a decision.
Yeah.
Not just react to it. So again, with all of the data that's coming in and people cuts, I'm just someone who likes to ask questions.
Yeah, well, that's good. If I face it, evaluate it,
I don't
assess it.
believe things face value.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not saying that people are liars, so I don't judge anyone. And by the way, freedom of choice, my core value is freedom. So,
yeah, that's fair enough.
like I'm the kind of person I would say to you, I would go to war for your freedom. Because if you've got freedom, so do I. And that freedom is, for me, the key to freedom is take responsibility. You can't have freedom without responsibility and accountability. So I want freedom, and I want to be responsible for my life, and I want to be accountable for my life. And as long as I stay within the boundaries of don't hurt other people and don't harm myself, well then you're pretty safe if you want to hang around there.
No, definitely. That's
Do you know
definitely
what I mean?
true. Yeah. It is a scary thing. I mean, having the freedom over what goes into your own body should be for everybody.
Yeah.
And if the evidence was clear and they treated us like adults, giving us the full analysis of all the data and the research for us to make our own decisions, then I would weigh it up and I'd decide whether to do it. When they're saying you got to do it, or you get a $5,000 fine, or you can't get a job, or whatever else, go to a restaurant. I mean,
so what you're talking about there, and this is probably where again I find myself pulling back a little bit. Behaviorism 101.
Yeah.
If you want to reinforce a behavior, you either reward it or you punish it. And everyone does this every day. If you want to get more of something done, you give someone a reward for it.
Like Pavlov's dog.
That's
conditioning.
it. And so what as soon as I heard all of these mandates and all, like $1 million lottery and whatever, free beers,
free donuts and Uber rides.
I'm like, wow, what is this? It's all for your own good. Okay, thank you, appreciate that. However, I think the miscommunication out there is a lot of people do believe that once they are vaccinated, they are inoculated. It means they will not catch it and they won't spread it, which is a lie.
At one stage, that's what they were saying.
That's what they were saying. Yes.
But that changes every month, that story.
Yeah.
Yes. I've noticed the thing, this is a 95% efficacy. Then it was 80, now it's 60.
Yeah, so the
and
numbers
it's just
are...
like, whoa, okay, like...
Yeah, anything to convince you to have it.
I was scared when they were like, a certain brand of vaccine, which is AstraZeneca, is like, this is only meant to be for people, was it over 50?
Over 60, 50,
over
60.
55, yeah. Now, like, actually, no, everyone can have it now.
Yes. No. Well, some countries... In fact, the Moderna one has just been... Again, correct me, I could be wrong here, but it's either Sweden or Switzerland. Sweden. They've just banned the Moderna. They won't.
Have they?
Well, mainly because the side effects have gone past what would normally be accepted.
Yeah.
And I think there's a couple of well-known
epidemiologists. Is that
epidemiologists,
yeah.
And they're saying, like, traditionally, if there's one death in a million, that's too many.
There was a was it a H1N1 vaccine or a flu vaccine that had 9 deaths, and they cancelled it.
That's right.
Pretty sure there's been more than 9 already. Or by a long shot.
Yeah, so that's where now we get into there's the different variants, and that what. So I don't know how many people know now. The Western Australian government on the 10th of this month, which was not yesterday, day before, item, I think it was 46 on the parliamentary agenda, and there's .4, and you can look this up. It's on their website now. You can download the PDF recordings of all of the things that went through. They just passed a bill to say, 27-2, that our private medical records are no longer our right to have privacy to them. So that's just been... See, there's things being passed now in Parliament that we don't even know is happening, and that's because in especially Victoria and here, the parties that are in, that got voted in and people wanted them in, they've got so much power, there's no one to ask questions or go against them.
Well, like that bill that Dan Andrew passed, giving him almost diplomacy to call a lockdown for up to 3 months if he wants to, and arrest people based on suspicion, based on gender, but based on health, based on anything.
Well, then go on the Western Australian government and have a look at what bill was put forward on the 20th of October. We've got the same here. So what they want to do is be prepared for the emergency by having a bill now say that we can keep the emergency going until June next year.
Well, the thing,
and so underneath those emergency powers, that means that they can make any rules and fine and yeah.
Well, I did hear that at one point the vaccine wasn't fully approved by the TGA and the FDA. It is now, but it was only partially approved
as a trial.
As a trial, yeah. So it could only be given under a state of emergency act.
That's right.
And if without that,
they need it.
Yeah, exactly.
How long have you been in counselling?
In '89, I graduated as a psychologist.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah. So
sorry, could you flip that?
So 30 years.
Because anything gold comes out.
Yeah.
gold comes out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you do?
At the moment, I work as a disability support coordinator. So I've been doing that not for too long. Before that, I was a PT.
Yes.
Yes, personal trainer. So it's a little bit different, but I'm enjoying it so far.
Yeah. No, great.
Yeah, it's so fulfilling, I guess, is a better choice of words.
Yeah.
So
you're actually getting clients in now as well. I'm doing a lot of the business side.
Yeah. So doing a little bit more like onboarding and doing the business side of things, and actually the support coordination side of things as well. Yeah, it's fun, but it's full on as well. Yeah, there's a lot more to do. The good thing is it's a good middle ground between kind of like office work, office work, and actually going out and meeting people and speaking to clients and stuff like that. Yeah.
What would you rather do, admin or people?
People. Yeah. But admin,
obviously,
I mean, admin is like it's no matter what business you're running, it's like part of the. Yeah,
it's my weakness. People say, "Have you got any weakness?" I go, "Yeah, admin." Have a look at my office. It's just piles of paper. It needs to get sorted out.
And files just everywhere.
You mean client records? No, they're there. They're some in that pile over there.
Somewhere that random pile. Yeah. No, that's cool. What made you decide to get into like psychology?
Look, I think it's a good question. When I, as a mature age student, I went back to Leederville Tech and did my entrance exams.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do law.
Oh, okay.
And that year, I missed out by 2 points.
Oh, wow.
So my second preference was journalism.
Okay.
And I went to WAIT then, the Western Australian Institute of Technology. And I remember going to my first lecture and my first tutorial on journalism. And my sense of it then was it was all just left-wing politics, and it was feminism, and it was anti-male. And I remember just walking out. I was I don't know, disappointed. I was kind of, and there's another word, it's a D, but really just discouraged from the whole thing. Anyway, so I went down to the counselling centre, student counselling. And they did a whole battery of tests and questionnaires and all that kind of thing. And at the end, they said, "You can do whatever you want. These are your scores." It's kind of like. So I went, okay, well, I'll do business and I love making money. And I'll do psychology, because if you want to make money, you've got to work with people. So
that's true. Yeah.
And also, I knew that as a psychologist, I wanted to actually work on myself as well.
Yeah.
So that was my journey then, and I think I've just said to Brett, graduated into the Alcohol and Drug Authority and worked in the Moore Street Clinic, and then Hollyoak and Princess Margaret Hospital as their research project officer. And
oh wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, so I've done some various. Then diagnosed with Hep C and told I had 10 years to live. This is a very fast kind of summary. It was then where I realized, so the thought behind it was I was married, and I thought, well, look, if I've only got this long to live, I want to just get the maximum out of life and put the maximum in before, I go.
That's true.
So a friend of mine was in a network marketing company. And I probably don't need to mention the name. But they were expanding, and I went and joined up and took off and spent the next 96 through to 2016 basically opening up Southeast Asia. So I spent 2 years in Thailand, 2 years in Indonesia, Singapore, Malaysia, Philippines.
That'll be fun.
Yeah, that
Just
was interesting
recruiting
experience.
people, training them in the business model and product training, and working with interpreters and using all the skills that I
Did you learn the
gained
languages?
from Sidikat, Nitnoy,
Yeah.
small amount. When you're there, you pick up the basics like anywhere else. And then came back here in 2016, and between then and now, I've just been going through a major transition. I think you get to 60 and you go, what am I doing? And when I look back even now, and I was talking about this last week, and I don't know whether people do reflect and review, I thought the things that were happening, my wife broke her leg, we were selling our house, we're going through, there was a couple of years, 2016 to 2018 was a really tough period of time. I think I was questioning a lot. Marriage is fantastic, but we're just questioning everything. And now I look back, I believe that 2 years was preparing me, because COVID was going to come and I wouldn't be able to travel anyway, so I had to find something new. I feel like, or believe that, praise God, and that's the only way I can say it, is that he knew more than I did and just orchestrated things so that, and I know I resisted a little bit, but put me on a path where, back at TSA, Kingdom City, I've just finished doing a discipleship program. I'm working with young guys, and now I've got this whole new Triumph Over Trauma. So I'm now working with people working from home, and I've never been so content, and I can say that honestly sitting here. I've just got a point in my life where I am so content. It's just beautiful.
That's what a lot of people
really
want.
I pray that everyone gets to a point in their life where it doesn't matter what's going on around you, that you've got that contentment. And it's Paul, it doesn't matter whether I lack or whether I've got more, or wherever I am, I'm just content, because I know who I am, I know who's in me, and I know where I'm going. And I think, with tying back in with what you and I were just talking about this whole COVID vaccination, in Ezekiel 33, God says to Ezekiel, if I should come and strike my sword against the land, I'm trying to just remember, if I should come and strike my sword against the land, and you don't have someone on the watchtower warning people by blowing the trumpet, then whoever dies, the blood will be on your head.
Wow, okay.
And then he says, so if you're on the watchtower and you blow the trumpet to warn people that my sword will come, and this is just before the Israelites went off to Babylon. So there was someone to warn them, guys, you're gonna go off into exile here if you don't pay attention. And so then if you do warn people and they listen, but they don't adhere to it, then the blood is on their own head. And this came up for me a few weeks ago with this whole debate around the virus, and I thought, really what we've got to do is raise ourselves above what's going on, because for all intensive purposes, we know in the book of Revelation that how it ends. We win. And this is all part of it. So it's hang on, so don't get caught up in it. Have the jab, don't have the jab, your freedom, your choice. Is evil going to come into the world and we're going to have one world government and all of that? Well, probably, but you know what, there's going to be 1,000 years of peace, and then Jesus is coming back. When? I don't know. But are you saved? Are you saved? And I really appreciate just being here with you guys now, because that is ultimately, after we've all said and done whatever we think, at the end of the day, the reality is, at some point in time, each and every one of us is going to die. So when that knock comes on the door, are you saved or are you not? So for me, the job that we have, which has always been our job, is to blow the trumpet and keep sounding it, so that people have got a choice, not whether they're jabbed or not, but are you going to hell or are you going to heaven? That's the ultimate question.
Yeah.
That's where I've got to in these last 72, 48 hours, the last week or so. Yeah.
And you quoted another chapter to me. I think it was something to do with principalities.
So principalities and powers. So we're not.
Ephesians?
Again, getting me to think of what the book is. But we don't fight a war of flesh and blood. So we fight a war of principalities and powers and things in high places. So we know that, again, if you believe in God, you believe in the devil, there's the force of good and evil, there's evil in the world, and there is evil. So who may be acting in an evil way isn't the person, but it's the spirit behind it. So what we need to be doing is praying against that, because if we get caught into the argument and the debate about who's right and who's wrong, then we've missed it. Now we're caught in the battle.
The battle,
And the battle is not ours, because it's already been won. The battle is the Lord's. So it's our faith. So no matter what's going on, we're meant to love. So love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, and all your strength is the first commandment. And the second commandment, and you guys know, is love your neighbour as yourself. And I guess one of the things that's happened for me personally this year, I've always struggled with that, love my neighbour as myself.
It is a hard one.
So if I don't love me, that means I can't really authentically, genuinely love you as a brother, a sister. I don't want to get into gender things, but I know you've got to be careful whatever you say. Anyway, but it's so this year I've in this discipleship program at Kingdom City. That was the one thing that I really dug deep into and prayed and researched and into the scripture, into the concordances. And what I discovered through the Hebrew and the Greek, and I'm just kind of going to summarize it, is God gave us love. He shed love abroad in our heart. He's given us love. He's given us hope. He's given us faith. So it's not even ours. It's His that He's given us, that we have. It's up to us whether we want to use that or not. So He first loved us, so we can love Him. So with the love that He's given me, I can love you with His love, because His is an unconditional love. And I know He's forgiven me for all of the things I've done. Now I may find it hard as a person to forgive you, but I know He has, and if I want, then I have to as well. So I do it through Him. But what I found was there's a deep longing for the presence of God in my life. I would love to be able to sit here and say to you, I've seen Jesus. He's appeared in front of me. I've had that tangible touch, because I long so much, not because I don't believe, but because I do believe. I long for that. And that longing I have for His presence, for His peace, for His love, I want that longing for you too. And that's how much I love you, is that I want you to have that longing in your heart for His love. And if we all have that, sorry,
that's all right. That's all right.
Oh, you can go.
It's my boss.
That's okay.
Hello, sweetheart.
The real boss.
No, all good. Okay, I'll give you a message when I'm finished here. Okay, thanks, sweetheart. What is the time now? It's
6:30.
6:30. No problem. Okay, that's good. Thanks. Sorry, guys.
That's all right, man. That's why we edit it.
That's why we edit it.
Yeah. Well, live will be a bit more genuine.
And you might not edit this bit.
We're going to leave it in, why not?
Yeah.
Good ringtone, though, didgeridoo. You play the didgeridoo? You play?
No, I
got one.
I just love the song.
Oh,
do you really?
Yeah, it does.
Awesome.
Yeah. Let's play it a little bit.
It's another one of those things. I don't know about you guys, but you get messages from people, and you end up messaging it. But a phone call just does it in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just don't like answering the phone. Like, it's easier to text, but that could just be like an introverted thing or whatever it may be.
I guess it's a generation thing.
Yeah.
We were raised with a black telephone at home that once you left the house, that was it, man. You were out of communication.
That was a good time.
And that was a good time to come back. Seriously,
that was a good
these
time.
things here, man.
I wouldn't mind if everything's fixed line.
Yeah,
that'd be good.
I just want to say also, I really appreciate, and I mean, like, to be able to sit here with you guys and just share what I've just shared. I just believe that me even being here with you is God's hand moving.
Yeah.
So being here with you, both of you. So my prayer about 3 or 4 weeks ago was that, I don't know how, but I'd love to get podcasts going. I'd love to get, how do I get out into the world? I can sit at home in my bedroom on a Zoom call, or make a little video and put it up on YouTube.
TikTok.
But I don't want to work or do things on my own. I want to work with people, and and again, everyone's got different ideas, which is great, and we kind of feed off one another.
Yeah.
Well, you said you had a friend that you wanted to do a show with.
Yeah.
Do you want to bring him on the show? All 4 of us.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Bill Mitchell's a really great friend of mine. And Bill and I are a little bit out there when we get together. So I don't know whether you've got a friend that when you're with him or her, doesn't, again, I'm not getting into gender, you can just be, and I am myself right now.
Yeah.
But you can say anything because that's just, and you can discern the rubbish from the from what being sincere. But sometimes it's just great to get with some people and just talk utter rubbish.
Yeah, it is.
That's what it's about. It's about that.
And have a laugh.
Being
Exaggerate.
authentic,
100%. And so Bill and I do that a lot. And then all of a sudden, one of us will go, a scripture.
Yeah.
Where did that come from? And then we'll dig deep into it. And we just have some really good. And he's a really great friend.
Well, the office on the table if you guys wanted to.
No, and I
they're
think
going to be exciting just to get.
He would love that.
All that going on.
He would really love that. So he has, on a Thursday, every second Thursday, around his kitchen table, he has about 8, 9, 10 blokes, men come, and they do a Bible study. And it's growing, and the guys are being fed, and so it's really, really good.
Well, I had a thought just the other day, is like, in these troubled times where separation and chaos and corruption and misinformation, it's pretty evident we can't turn to man and his laws. We have to turn to God and the universal laws, and go within to really find that clarity we're looking for and that connection we're looking for, and just to step forward as sovereign beings who aren't afraid. They can take away your rights, take away your job, and you can still move forward.
Yeah. It's
just like Job,
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
It's empowering, though.
Yeah. So I've always said too that Jesus is my Lord and Saviour, but Paul's my hero.
Yeah.
St. Paul.
Oh man, Paul!
He's next level.
If you look at my bookshelf at home, there's like all of those books are all about Paul. The Heart of Paul, The Life of Paul. N.T. Wright writes a really great, heavy reading, but
I like
Paul.
I like Paul because he's a very good
role model.
Role model, of course, but he's also a very good. It's hard. He's like the balancing.
Yes.
He was a dark man.
Yes.
In his shadow, he was a murderer.
Yeah.
He was the guy who was hunting Jesus down to kill him.
Yes.
And he turned after his vision at Damascus to what you would call an apostle.
Yes.
Preaching the Lord and doing these amazing things, and God choosing him, a murderer, a sinner.
Gives us all hope, doesn't it?
It does. Haven't killed anyone yet.
And that's what I meant. No, but again, it's like, well, who else would you choose? If someone who knew the law so well, and then was killing the Christians, to have that road to Damascus experience. So for me, with Paul, what I really love about Paul is he overcame everything. And even though he was in prison, I imagine this is my imagination. Here's Paul, rocks up to a town. Where am I going to stay tonight? Oh, I'll just break the law, get put in jail, and I'll write another book.
Is that what he did?
What? No, I'm making it up. The thing is, he wrote while he was, so he was
prison.
He was a prisoner of the Lord. If you have a look at Ephesians, Galatians, Colossians, all of those books, he opens up with, the first verse usually is something like, I'm a bondservant to the Lord, or I'm a prisoner to the Lord. And so he was in prison in Christ.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't matter where he was, what room he was in, whether it had bars on the window and guards at the door, and the floggings that he had. What he snake bitten. He was bitten by a viper, shipwrecked. So what he went through, it's like, what a great, and I say this to a lot of people, whether you believe in God or not, there's some amazing stories in the Bible that if you read them, they're empowering, they encourage you, they lift you up, they inspire you, because if one man can, so can we. And he had a mission. He knew he was going to Rome to face his death, just like Jesus was facing his death going to the cross. And one of the things that I love about the story about the Garden of Gethsemane, when Jesus was with the disciples, and so they all rock up to the Garden of Gethsemane, and he says to them, just wait here, I'm going over here to pray. And he takes Peter and Simon with him, so they go a little bit further, and it says he was so nervous that he was sweating blood. He was sweating unto death. So here's, when I read through those scriptures, what I see is this: some really good close friends with Jesus. And I imagine, just imagine it's us three. Who wants to be Jesus? But
he's already got the costume.
But I go, so we know that something's bothering him, and he needs to go and pray. And if you said to, your name is just Ryan,
yeah,
and myself, look guys, just wait here. I'm feeling like I could kill myself at the moment because I really don't want to have to do what I have to do, and I'd rather just end it now. But just wait here, I'm going over here to pray. I think you and I'd be going, I think we better keep our eye on him. No, we're coming with you. But they didn't. They went to sleep.
Oh, really?
And if you read through Matthew, if you read through that, 3 times he went and said, Father, take this cup from me. But if it's your will, I will do it.
So there was a very human side to Jesus.
Yeah. Well, he was human. He gave up his divinity to come down and be with us. And that's why I love the story of Jesus. It's real. He was a man because he gave up his divinity, but he also knew what his mission was, and he came to save the world. And coming back to what you were just saying, Brett, is that in a time where you can't trust really what anyone is saying, the word doesn't change from yesterday, today or tomorrow. So it gives us something to hang on to. And Jesus is our hope. He's our anchor.
Yeah. That reminds me of the book Isaiah, where it's like, I the Lord create the darkness and the light. I create the good and the evil. I the Lord do all these things.
Yes.
And it's almost like all the negativity and the evil in the world is coming to the surface, which gives people an opportunity to go within, to become sovereign, to see their power, to do whatever they need to do. Get shaken up a little bit, to awaken to that higher reality.
Yeah.
And it's a catalyst, which can be a very good thing. But when you're in the midst of it,
no,
you don't realize it until hindsight.
Yeah. So right now, this is revival times. This is a time where, when people are questioning, it's an opportune time to bring people to the Lord and build the kingdom. And that's, as I said before, it's the real question is, whatever's going on, where are you going to go? Because death will come one day. How? We don't know. We don't know the hour or the time. Whether it's going to be from a jab or from the virus or from getting hit by a car, or whether you just die of natural causes in, whatever. And we pray everyone has a long life and healthy life. The thing is, the reality is, we don't know.
Yeah.
And the question is then, regardless of what's going on, no one can take away from you the spirit that Christ has placed within you. Yeah. So what are you going to do with it?
Yeah, it's quite interesting. I think like it's one of those times where like you really pretty much you really have to ground yourself. Yeah, you've got to be really solid in like in your belief in God. Yeah, you've got to be really solid, because like especially last year where everyone was pretty much just kind of locked up at home.
Yeah,
you can't really do anything. You can't go out. You can't use all the distractions to kind of to keep yourself from diving within. Or you're pretty much just there by yourself, and you've got to go through those demons and go through and self-analyze and try and actually figure out who you are.
Yeah.
Like, at what point in your life did you really like ask yourself, who am I?
I think I've been asking that question most of my life.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
What about the first time? The first time where it was
so
like
the picture that flashed into my mind just then was when I was probably about 6 or 7.
Damn, okay.
I've always had this, and I mean it as what am I here for? So those questions, what's this all about? Like, what is this? I think, as I said to Brett earlier, with my upbringing, my father was an alcoholic.
Yeah.
Very violent man. And I question, again, as I said, we used to go to Sunday school. So you kind of had this idea, and I knew there was a book called John. That's very key in my life.
Yeah.
I always wanted to know what this book, John, was. But I think that I always just had that question, what am I doing here? And it wasn't until probably 18, 19 years of age where, when I was born again, when I gave my heart to the Lord, that I started to see. So there was a period of time in my life between 10 and 14 where I used to see things. I used to hear voices. Now it's pretty risky saying this kind of stuff because people think you've got a mental health problem.
Yeah.
And people did. My dad was a builder, so I used to go to work with him on a weekend, and I fell off a factory roof onto a pile of bricks, had concussion, broke my arm, all kinds of stuff. But after that I used to have blackouts as well. But I used to hear voices. So if I was in a quiet place, you know when you're trying to tune a radio in and you can just hear I could be sitting and it would be like I could hear radio frequencies. Now, my mum and dad had my head x-rayed, I went to mental health, I went to psychiatry. So I went through a period of where I'd learned, keep your mouth shut, don't say anything because you get treated like there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
And for me it was real. I would be sitting in the lounge room and I could say there's going to be an accident on the corner and someone's going to get hurt. And within a short period of time, where we lived in Melbourne, there'd be screech of brakes, bang, and so I know that happened 2 or 3 times. And when my dad's father passed away, I woke up in the early hours of the morning and he was standing at the end of my bed. And I came down, I was probably only about, again, 5 or 6 years of age. And I remember saying to Mum and Dad, Grandpop's standing at the end of my bed. Now my dad just launched into a tirade because I didn't know, but he'd just passed away.
Oh wow.
Okay.
And so I learned then in an early age to not say anything because you got into trouble for it and people thought you were crazy. So when I was born again at 19, 20, Pastor Bill Salisbury, which I was just sharing a little bit before about, he said to me, you've got the gift of prophecy. And I was like, huh? So it wasn't until I started studying the Bible and started realizing that all the kings had a prophet.
Yeah.
And they were seers. They saw things, they heard things. So
Daniel,
you've got to discern whether you're hearing the voice of the Lord, and you only know that because if you know the word. So that's what put me into that whole thing. So I've always had this question. I've always known there's like a dark side and a light side. And so,
That gift, do you still have that gift now of prophecy, or is it something you've suppressed or ignored over the years?
Now, as the Lord, as the Spirit flows, yes, it comes.
That's interesting.
It's not something you can just turn on and it's like...
No, it just comes when it comes.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah. I had a good friend of mine I used to work with as a personal trainer. She used to get dreams, and these dreams would actually come true.
Yes.
So she had a dream that her brother was stabbed in this alleyway. And it was the alleyway that she recognised because it's the alleyway on the way to their workshop where they have a job, where they work there. And she called him up and said, "Don't go to work. Just don't do it." He didn't go to work for a couple of weeks. And his friend, going to work, co-worker, got stabbed in the same alleyway.
Oh, that's crazy.
That's legit.
See,
and she didn't want to do it. She just started to suppress that. She was like, "I don't want to know it anymore. I don't want to get these gifts." And she suppressed it so much it doesn't happen anymore. But
there is a spiritual dimension to life. You just got to make sure what side of that dimension you're on.
That's very true.
Because once you start dabbling into the spiritual realm, there's good and there's evil, and we know who is the deceiver, and so you want to open a door you can't close again. Exactly. You want to know that you've got the Lord on your side. For me personally, that's why the Scripture is so important, and knowing it. And we'll be learning until the day we go home to be with the Lord, all that's available to us.
Are there any premonitions or prophecies you're feeling or sensing now for our near future, or anything that sort of you want to share with the world?
I could. Again. So again, maybe 6-8 weeks ago, I woke up in the morning and I said to my wife, "Sweetheart, there's going to be fighting in the streets. There's going to be soldiers in the streets, and I don't think it's going to be here, but it's going to be over east." So again,
right
is that because I'd read stuff, and again, look, we read, we analyse, we can join the dots together, and we can get a picture. You go to sleep and your subconscious then works on that, and it gives you a potential outcome. There was a time, wish my wife was here actually, because she could tell you, there was back when they were voting for the abortion bill. I said to my wife, I said, "Sweetheart, I've just got the song Amazing Grace." I said, I have this vision. Again, I shut my eyes because I see it. I have this vision. If we all just sang Amazing Grace, if every Christian in every city, in every town, simultaneously was able to walk out into the street and just sing Amazing Grace, the media would be, what's going on? And when they come to interview, we're to say nothing. We're not to say a thing. But the words from that, and it was only days later in Sydney, there was a group of women marching, singing Amazing Grace.
Oh wow!
Very tuned.
There's, and I'm not saying I'm hold the office of a prophet or anything, but I know that we're all meant to prophesy. So we all have the ability, if we are believing and listening, then I think that we all get those unctions from the Spirit.
St. Paul said that himself. He said that people have different gifts: the gifts of spirit, the gifts of prophecy, the gift of healing. Everyone's got their own gifts. And I mean, if we're aligned and have a relationship with God, then those gifts will heighten and strengthen as we use them and as we acknowledge them. Because a lot of people just suppress them or don't want to go there, or don't want to talk about it.
If you're raised in a family that doesn't know God, and your parents can't distinguish the gift that you've been born with, then it never gets developed.
That's true.
And so it sits dormant, I believe. This is just it sits dormant, waiting for the opportune time. and that means that someone's got to come across your path and introduce you to the Lord, so that it wakes up that opportunity, that spirit that's within you, and you give your heart to the Lord. Now you can start to learn and start to develop and start to grow, because I believe every one of us has a gift.
Yeah.
But we don't use it for our own gain. We use it to serve.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's, yeah.
Do you think kind of like that experience where your parents never really were close to God, but let's say you were, that experience would bring you closer to God a little bit later, because you know what it's like not to experience alignment with God.
Yeah.
So when you do get the opportunity, whereas you meet that one person, it's like, oh, okay, wow, this is totally different. So this is what it truly means to be aligned with God.
Yeah.
Because I feel like even those little things like happen for a reason. Like it's even if your parents weren't really particularly connected to God, when you get to a point when you are connected to God, or you do develop that connection, it's more powerful, because you have something to compare it to. Not that you should have something to compare it to, but you have the experience of not being connected to God.
You can contrast it very clearly. And you know, the beautiful thing, my parents now are 91 years of age.
Yeah.
And in the last 18 months, I've had the honour of having both of them come and live with my wife and I.
Oh, wow.
And I've led both mum and dad to the Lord. They were in their little walkers coming to church on Sunday, and they were welcoming people in. And so to see the transformation from what they've come through in their 90 years. And, you know, go back 90 years, there were psychologists, and, you know, they had the changes that they've seen, but to give their heart to the Lord. And my father and I have had the most deepest, sincere, honest conversations, where Dad has broken down and said, "Son, I'm so sorry."
Yeah.
And I've gone, "Dad, I just love you." And so I've learned that no matter what, I don't condone what he did, but he did what he did because that's all he knew what to do. Because of when you look at his upbringing, he was treated worse than he treated me. So it doesn't excuse it or justify it, but it gives you an understanding, and first seek understanding and forgiveness. And it's so I know now, for me, what I want is that my mum and dad, at least when they do go, which is probably not far down the track, that they will go and they will be with Jesus, and I will see them again in the new world, you know.
Yeah,
definitely. What a beautiful gift to be able to give to your parents.
So given that we're all in the ministry of reconciliation, that's one of our tasks. It's not to hold on to things that have been done to us, although tragic things do get done to people by the ones that they love, and it's horrible that happens. Yet if we can learn and get, so how did the way I was raised, how did that shape my life? Because I am today who I am out of that experience. Now, you don't want that experience to be forced on people or for everyone to have it, yet for me to be able to see the value, the life that I've shaped, the Lord has helped me shape, means I can be grateful for those experiences, even though they weren't pleasant. Because I am who I am today out of it.
That's true.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So one of the things, again, it comes back to counselling and psychology. And if I'm talking too much, say so.
No, that's what you're here for.
That's what you're here,
There's a really great concept around forgiveness. When people have suffered, and people suffer tragically. If I was to say, for example, that I have a case here and it's got $1 million in it, no strings, no attachments. Here's the $1 million.
Thank you.
Will you forgive me for giving it to you?
I think I can do that.
But how does that feel when I ask you to forgive me?
It kind of feels like this is going to ruin your life.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like.
Okay.
As if you think, I'm going to go and do cocaine for the next 3 weeks straight.
Yeah.
Probably are.
Probably not.
But when you give, now, if you imagine you already have the $1 million and I become your friend, deceive you, steal the money, hoof off, and you realise later that I've taken it and I disappear, how do you feel?
Oh, you'd feel pretty terrible, yeah. It'd be a huge ego death, I suppose.
Yeah. And then sometime later, I become remorseful, get a dose of the guilt. The money's gone, but I come back to you and I say, look, I took the money and I'm really sorry. Will you forgive me? How are you going to feel?
It will. Me personally, I would probably find a way to forgive due to the knowledge that I've got, and knowing that Tony Robbins said this in one of his shows, that life isn't happening to you; it's happening for you.
For you, yeah.
So there could be a lesson in that you need to weed out. But in my earlier days, I may, when I get into a bit of a scuffle, you know what I mean.
And that's the point that I'm making, is that when you lose something, when it's taken from you, and when people are abused in any way, shape or form in their life, something's taken from them, or they don't get the love and the nurturing that they need, then something's been taken from them, and it's hard to forgive, because it's like, I've lost. So even though we know it's the right thing to do, it says, forgive your brother. So how you expect God to forgive you if you don't forgive? So we know it's the right thing to do, but there's still that thing in there. However, if I was to bring the $1 million back and say to you, I'm really sorry, I took it, I've had it under the bed for all these years, I haven't done anything with it, but here it is back again, would you forgive me? What would you?
You probably would forgive them, yeah. You'd be happy to see that money again.
Yeah, exactly, because you got the value back. So my point is that for us to forgive, we need to learn the lesson and get value from the experience.
Okay, yeah.
That then allows us to forgive, because we can see that, well, even though it was horrible, even though it was like I wouldn't want it on my worst enemy, well, it's made me who I am, and I've grown to become who I am. So in a way, I thank you for it. And there's a process that I do in taking people through trauma, where we get to actually do that, and they come out from the process with, well, they're completely free from it, because they've got more value out of it than what they've believed it's cost them.
Yeah.
So you go from being a victim to being a victor.
Yeah.
And the circumstance hasn't changed. It happened and you don't condone it, but now they can talk about it, because there's no grief and loss attached to it.
Yeah.
They've healed that piece of themselves.
Yeah, it's an amazing process.
And that's Triumph Through Trauma. Is that the company?
I do part of that.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
So where can people find you if they want to?
Well, it's online. triumphovertrauma.com.au.
I have one more question.
Yes.
Question.
Of course.
So, in regards to forgiving others, I know you can forgive someone, but do you believe that part of that process of forgiveness is about forgiving yourself?
Look, I think it's a great question. It really is. So if we were to sit here and do an inventory and be honest, and write down on one side of a column all the things that people have done to us, and then on the other column all the things, if we're willing to be ruthlessly honest, that I know I've done or said to other people, you'll find that the scales would balance out pretty much in, you may have done more than what's happened to you. But you see, we don't own that. We don't admit that. We don't talk about that. All we talk about is what's been done to us. Now, hurt people, you guys know that phrase. So for me, it is about, yes, forgiving others, yet the most important part is, and I think it's the part where a lot of us, and including myself, has struggled over the years, is forgiving myself. So that's the guilt, the shame, and the blame.
Yeah.
So then we put a mask on, we hide it, and we start to live the lie that the mask represents, because we don't want to look at the shame or the blame or the regret. And if we don't, it ends up becoming resentment. And we can resent ourselves and resent others. And that's when things really start to turn sour, if we start living a life of resentment.
Yeah.
But we do it nicely, because we still want people to like us.
Yeah.
And they're the areas that I work in mainly, is helping people to uncover, and I have it, uncover, and then discover, and then work through, and recover.
Oh wow, okay, yeah. That's powerful.
Do you have any advice to people that are obviously trying to get through trauma and also trying to get a little bit more clarity, but also to find why they're here for, what their purpose is? Any advice in that sort of ground?
If they're believers?
Believers or non-believers?
Or non-believers.
Yeah. We can do both if you want, part A and part B.
There's probably a couple of different things that you can do, but one of them is, if you were to just spend some time, again, reflecting on your own life, what's something that brings joy and happiness and excitement and you just love doing it? Well, have a look at that. Like, some people just love admin. I just don't get it.
Yeah.
Like, put my wife in an office that's a mess, and within a day she'd have everything filed, labelled, categorised, in order, and she's got it all handled.
Yeah.
And I'm like, come and work for me. So I do believe that people have got natural talent, skill and ability, that then if you can identify that, it's like when I just asked Ryan before, what would you rather do, work with people or do the office work? It's like, give me people.
Yeah.
So great. There's something, cognitive behavioural therapy, which is it's the most common thing used. One of the things I love is positive psychology. So positive psych takes cognitive behavioural therapy. So CBT looks at the problem, looks at what are your pattern of thoughts, beliefs and emotions that feed the behaviour that becomes a problem. So if we can resolve all of that, and it's kind of like in positive psych they show this diagram, if this line here in the middle represents zero, ground zero, and if you've got problems in your life it goes down to -5. So when you come to counselling or psychology, we're looking at the problem, we're analysing the problem, we're looking at the thoughts, the beliefs, the emotions and the behaviours, and if we can modify those, reframe them and get you back to zero, you're well. But you're only back to zero.
Yeah, that's true.
So if we were to look at, in all of your life, no matter what the problem, no matter what you've done, what you've said, what's the positive things you've done? Well, you were born, so you managed to be the one sperm that made it to the egg.
Yeah.
Good on you.
Yeah.
You made it through, childhood. You got your first grade, second, third, school. So you look at your accomplishments and your achievements, and you get those strengths, and then you go, okay, so how are these problems that you got holding you back from really excelling in those strengths? And let's focus on the strengths. Still, you don't ignore the problem, because that's how you're sabotaging yourself from actually being your full, true potential. And so for me, when I'm working with people on that model, is I really love to work on people's strengths and get them to make an inventory of what you've accomplished in your life. Because we don't ever sit down and even talk to one another and say, so what have you accomplished today? What did you overcome? What did you achieve?
Today?
Yeah.
I would say bringing this together.
Yeah. Awesome. And you focus on that. So what did it take? And you break that down to the things that you managed to, in the stress of the day and everything else, you managed to pull it all together, and we got here, 5:30 and started. But it's like just being able to then go back over your life and look at the strengths. So build and focus on strengths. Don't ignore the problem, because they're going to trip you up all the time. But let's not just focus on the problem, solve it and get you back to ground zero. We want to get you to +5 or +10. And that way, even if the problems are subconscious, they're not going to happen as frequently because, man, you're creating a life that you're a winner. You're somewhere that's going to happen, you know? Yeah. I'm an incurable optimist.
Right. That's beautiful.
That's the way to be, yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So I hope, you know, people who are listening get value out of whatever I've shared.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
There's a lot of value there, even though it's only able to happen for like half of it.
That's it. Well, that was brilliant, man. Yeah. I thank you for your time.
No, that's great.
Thank you so much.
It's lovely to meet you. It's really my pleasure
to have you.
Yeah, so it's interesting when you go and you so I did 3 years at Bible college, you know, advanced diploma. Having the piece of paper that says you're going to doesn't mean anything. It's how much of the word have you retained. I often say to people, you're better off reading 1 chapter all year than trying to read the whole book and remember nothing.
That's true. Yeah.
So just open it up and take a dive. And pray, let the Holy Spirit lead you. Just read the book of Ephesians. Just read it and read it and read it and read it. And then when you've had enough, go to Galatians or go to Colossians or read those books.
Well, what are your thoughts on the book of Revelation?
I really don't know enough to make any comment at all. And I know it's a hot topic at the moment. And there's a lot of people out there. Are you pre-millennial? Are you millennial? Are you post-millennial? And I go, all I know is Jesus is coming back. And are you saved? So that's my default position now is I don't know about that. All I know is, are you saved? If not, do you want to get saved? And if you don't, well, here's my number. Give me a call when you're ready. You know, because that's what we're meant to do, is take the word out to the ends of the earth and give people the opportunity. You know, we're anointed to give sight to the blind, heal the brokenhearted, set captives free, and preach the word. So wherever we get the opportunity to, in the appropriate way, especially in this culture and time, is introduce people to hope. And I think instead of talking Bible and Scripture and Jesus and all of that, it's just, I often ask people, so have you lost hope? And that's a great entry.
It's a great question too, actually.
Yeah. So in these times, like, how you feel. The other thing, and I know we haven't talked about this, so what I've been researching over the last, month or so, because I started going through it, I noticed that I was demonstrating symptoms of post-traumatic stress. But I don't have any, I'm not post anything. So when I was doing the mental health first aid certificate, which I recommend everyone go and do, just for their own benefit and for being able to ask that question, are you okay, and know what to do. There is such a thing as pre-traumatic stress syndrome. So back in the Gulf, in the war, Afghanistan, there's a group of Danish soldiers. So they're all trained to go to war. They all know what their role is, what their job is, and where they're heading to. So they developed an inventory, a questionnaire, to survey what their thoughts and feelings were prior to going. And so there's already a post-traumatic stress syndrome survey questionnaire that they do. So they adapted it from that. And what they found, and this is what ties into now climate change and to the vaccine, is when you know that there is a potential danger, especially when the media is just hammer and tongs downloading fear that the world's going to come to an end, the oceans are going to flood, and people are going to lose their lives, and we're all going to burn, and forests are going to die. You know, when all of that drama and catastrophe is shoved down your throat, people develop a fear and an apprehension to even, like, there's even now young people have already said, we're not having children. I'm not bringing children into the world. No, because it's just going to be all over. So they've already been affected by the climate story.
Demoralised.
To stop. So with pre-traumatic stress, if you were to say, no, I don't want to get the vaccination, I believe in free choice, and then someone pays out on you and criticises you and runs you down, and so now you're being abused, so you back off even further. And what we're finding is that people are not speaking up, and I'm seeing people coming to see me now, not for stress and anxiety over something that's happened, but stress and anxiety over, I can't make a decision, I don't know what to do, because I'm frightened of what may happen.
Yeah.
So they're exhibiting the same symptoms as post-traumatic stress as pre-traumatic stress. They imagine, like, because they read and they hear that maybe I'm going to get Bell's palsy, maybe I'm going to get clots. So they have a real, and it's a legitimate concern. But how do you deal with that?
That's true.
And that's where Christ comes in.
That's true, yeah. I always come back to when I'm hearing these stories, it's like, it's a well-known thing that to control people, fear is a good means of control. You know?
Divide and conquer and fear. Yeah. Get us arguing against one another. See, I believe this with the church as a whole. We've got all these denominations with different doctrines, and people will fight over whether you should be baptized or not. Guys, in the scheme of things, does it really matter? Because it's just bogging us down and keeping us apart.
That's true.
Separation.
Now, if I get baptized and you don't, and the final day comes and we're there before the judgment seat, is God going to go, no, you didn't get washed?
You didn't have water sprinkled.
So it's kind of like, can you hang life in the balance of whether you, and I'm just picking that as a simple thing, does life hinge on that? You know, speaking in tongues. You speak in tongues, you must be full of evil.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about that. When I was in Malvern, first time I had a hand laid on my head and they prayed and I gave my heart to the Lord, I could hear what I thought were like Chinese, Asian voices, but then I realised that it was me.
Oh wow.
Okay.
It just came out of me.
You were speaking in tongues.
And it was.
Is it like rhythmical or just sort of noise?
Yeah, just noise, and it was definitely coming out of me.
Do you think that was like a purging? Maybe there could have been some kind of
I don't know
spiritual force or
all I know is that when you receive the Holy Spirit, like in the upper room, the flame came and danced on their head, and they all spoke in other tongues, and people out there thought that they were drunk.
Oh wow!
In the Book of Acts, it says
about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway,
it's interesting.
Yeah, that's
very
interesting,
interesting stuff. That was a good little.
Thank you.
A good little outro. Yeah, I turned the mic back on.
Oh, did you?